Hi and welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at installing packages in Python using the console. At this point, if you don't have Python 3.5 or higher installed, I recommend that you go and download and install that now. I'd recommend you install the latest version of Python that is stable. At the current time of recording, that's 3.6, but when you're watching this, maybe 3.7 or later. I recommend you install that just because, you want to stay ahead of the curve, you want to use the latest technologies, and taking a course is a great opportunity to adopt a new technology. So I recommend you install the latest version, and also that's because later versions of Python come with, when you install them, a program called pip. That's pip, like that. Pip is used to install Python packages. Okay, so if we do pip install requests, for example, what this is going to do is it's going to go over to various websites and it's going to look and see if it can find a Python package or library called requests. And if it can find it, it's going to install it. So I press enter. And as you can see, I get requirement already satisfied. That's because I've already installed requests, but the fact that it's telling me this means that requests exists. So that's good. This is what PyCharm is doing in the background when you tell it to install a library. All it's doing is it's doing pip install and then the library that you ask it to install. Okay, as you can see, the requests library is already installed in this folder here. USR local lib python 2.7/site packages. This tells us that the requests package we try to install right now, we try to install it for Python 2.7. We did not try to install it for Python 3.7. If you want to install for Python 3.7, you'll have to do pip 3.7 install requests. If you only have one version of Python installed, i.e. you're using Windows or maybe Linux and you don't have multiple versions of Python installed, you only have to do pip install requests, okay? This is what to do if you only have one version of Python installed. But if you have many, you can do pip 3 in order to choose the latest version of Python 3, or pip 3.7 in order to choose Python 3.7, and that's where you're installing. So again, pip 3.7 install requests, and it'll tell me now the requirement's already satisfied, but notice how now the location of where it is already satisfied is different. That's because I've installed Python 3.7 in a different way than Python 2.7. Python 2.7 comes with my computer. Python 3.7 I've installed using the official installer. So this is how you'd install packages using pip. And a package we're going to want to install now is one that you may already have, but nonetheless it's a good idea to make sure you've got it. It is called virtualenv. Okay, as you can see, it tells me that I've already satisfied this, but if you don't have virtualenv installed already, I recommend you do install it. When you use this virtualenv package, what you can do is you can duplicate an existing Python installation. So let's say you've got Python 3.7 installed. You can use virtualenv to make a copy of that, but without any of the libraries that you've already installed. As you can see, I've got requests already installed in Python 3.7. If I create a virtual environment using Python 3.7, it won't have requests installed. So let's do just now. The way to do that is by typing virtualenv, then the name of the virtual environment, it's normally venv, --python equal Python 3.7. Again, instead of Python 3.7, you can type Python if you only have one version of Python installed. By doing this, I'm saying run the virtualenv program, which again must be in my path. And these here are two arguments that I'm passing to that program. And programs in the terminal can accept arguments. venv is the first argument, and --python equal Python 3.7 is the second argument. The first argument is the name of the venv, of the virtual environment, which is in this case is going to be venv. The second argument tells the venv what program to run, that's Python 3.7, when we are creating the virtual environment. So it's going to use Python 3.7 for this virtual environment. So let's do just that. notice how a few things happen. It says it's using the interpreter Python 3.7, and then it installs a couple of things like setup tools, pip, and wheel. Those are a few libraries that are very useful for installing packages. And then it's done. Now, inside your venv, so what we're going to do is we're going to open the current folder in my Explorer so that you can see exactly what we've got here. Let me just bring it up. This is the VM folder that we've just created. We've got a bunch of things. We've got bin, and then here we've got, Python, Python 3.7, Python 3. These are all Python programs that we can run. You've got pip that you can run as well. You've got a program called activate. If you're using Windows, this may look slightly different. You may have a scripts folder in here. That's totally fine. Now, when you type which Python 3.7, you can see that the Python 3.7 that we're going to run is still this one inside library frameworks. If we do source.venv bin activate, and then we type which Python 3.7 again, now you can see that we are using our venv folder. Inside it we've got bin, and inside it we've got Python 3.7. So what we're doing now is we're using a completely different version of Python. Well, it's actually the same version, but it's a completely different installation of Python. Before we were using this one in our library. Now we're using the one in our venv. By the way, if you're using Windows, it won't be source.venv bin activate. If you're using Windows, it'll be /venv scripts activate.bat. So if you're using Windows, you want to run this line here instead of this one, okay? But I'm not using Windows, so I don't need to do that. You can also see that you've got /venv inside brackets at the start. That tells you that you are currently using this virtual environment. Okay. If you echo the path, you can see that now you've got something at the start of the path. /users/svtr/venv/bin. Before, we had this at the first folder. Now we've got this one. So any programs we try to run are first going to be looked at inside this venv folder. For example, Python 3.7. This is really powerful because now, if we type Python 3.7, we're using the Python 3.7 in our virtual environment. If we then type import requests, you can see that it cannot be found. It's not installed. So if you want to install requests, now you can do pip install requests. And that's going to install the requests library inside your virtual environment. If you were then to go and create another virtual environment and call it something else, it would not have the requests library. So these libraries, when you're using a virtual environment, are only installed within the virtual environment. This is really great because it lets you have different virtual environments, each with different versions of the same library, potentially. Let's say you start a project today and you install requests, version 2.18.4. And you develop this project over a period of a few months or a couple of years, and you never update the requests library. But then you start a new project, and you want to use the latest version of requests because maybe they fixed a bug or something. You can do that. You can create a new virtual environment and install the latest version. And the old project that's using this version will not be affected. Imagine they've also changed some of the functionality so that your old project would no longer work. Now you don't have that problem because each project can have its own independent versions. And by the way, this takes up a few megabytes of your hard drive, and it's essentially free. It doesn't cost you anything to have multiple virtual environments. I have many Python projects in my computer. Each one has its own virtual environment to keep it separate from every other project. So moving forwards, whenever you start a new project in Python, create a virtual environment for it and make sure to use that whenever you're running your applications. Over the rest of the course, we're going to be creating virtual environments for our projects just to give you some examples of how this works. Now that you're in your VM though, if you did have some Python files that you want to run, for example, like an app.py or something, all you have to do is type Python app.py, and that's going to run the Python program in your path, which is Python 3.7, because that's what's in your venv, and then it's going to run the file app.py, which is presumably the file that starts up your program. So this is how you would run a specific file with Python from within your console, and you can do that within a virtual environment. So that's going to, again, give separation between your projects, and it's going to make them a bit more independent. That's it for this video though. It's getting a bit longer now, so let's continue in the next one.